Good evening. Good evening. What's up, everybody? Rusty, Jersey Red. How you doing? Great to see you as always. What's up? Welcome, everybody. Jersey Red, Rusty, thanks so much for holding it down on the comments, as always. Who else we got here? Jeff Steen, good evening. H. Glide, what's up? And Dennis, glad to have you back. Great to see you. Ray, what's going on? Elias, happy Friday, back at you. Craig, down under. Good day. Excellent. What's up, Bill? What's up, Steve? What's up, MA? Good to see you as always. All right. Dave, what's going on? Happy Guitar Friday. I love it. Who else we got? James from Syracuse. Good to see you. Teddy, what's up? Laura, hello. Welcome back. Theodore, what's going on? Russ. Excellent. What's up, everybody? Raker Master Tim. Hello. Good to see you. Please double check, expand the description, double check that you can get the PDF for the tabs that we're going through tonight. I had to double check the link real quick before going live here. So it seemed like maybe I made a mistake, but then it seemed like it was right. So hopefully y'all got access to that link for the PDF. Zane, what's good? Yeah, man, we're doing the best we can, staying indoors and hoping the AC holds out, Zane. It's been brutally hot here, but I might have to flip on the AC here in the room here, but we'll keep rocking with it until such time as that I'm on the verge of sweating into a puddle, right? What's up, Doug? Doug from Denver. Well, welcome back. I'm glad everybody made it back who's been gone for a couple of weeks. Hey, it's the summer, right? Alonzo, what's up? Motosh, hello. All right. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining. We've got a great group here tonight. As always, queue up your questions at any point. I will do my best to answer any guitar-related questions. Jody1, what's up? Good to see you. And yes, expand the description, PDFs with the tabs below this video, all right? So we usually start out with some sort of warm-up, and it's always some sort of chromatic warm-up, usually. But I think I'm going to shift that strategy moving forward on the guitar workouts, and we'll warm up with something that's a little more useful, a little more musical. Okay, so I've got parts 1A and 1B, the first one being just a minor pentatonic warm-up with two positions. Okay, so you see in the first bar, we're going to play in B minor pentatonic. Tien, what's up in Vietnam? Welcome. Good to see you as always. We're going to choose Amran from Singapore. What's up? Excellent. Dave, how you doing? All right. Guitar. So 7th fretted low string is our B note. And what you'll notice in the first bar of this first exercise 1, is that we are on the nut side, on this side of that root note. Okay? And then as we come down in the second bar, we're on the body side of that root note. Okay? So this pentatonic scale pattern is one that usually a lot of people, it's like one of the first ones that we learn as guitar players, right? B minor pentatonic, 7th position. But there's a really useful one right below it. And it's really easy to remember because you've got 2 frets apart on the low 2 strings, 3 frets apart on the middle strings, and then back to 2 frets apart on the top string. So this exercise will burn that in a little bit, but it's really easy to remember. So it's a good one to throw into your practice, especially if you like to play along with like blues backing tracks and stuff like that and kind of mess around playing with some leads and stuff. Move out of that box and kind of shift positions and go back and forth and see what kind of ideas you can come up with, find some things that sound good to your ear and kind of work with them a little bit. That's sort of the whole idea behind this. All right. Doug Smith, yes, Vintage 71, that's me, right on, Vintage 61. Excellent. Mark, what's up in Mississippi? Great to have you. Master Tim's asking, are there scales as intermediate that I should work on? A few simple ones. Yes. I would say these ones. Maybe these are a little bit too beginner-ish, but you may not have seen this particular pattern of the minor pentatonic, and you're going to see the blues scale next. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about scales after we finish this exercise, all right? Okay, so we're going to start actually on the A note, but realize that we're in B minor pentatonic, so the root is actually on the 7th fret of the low string, okay? But we're going to go 5-7, 5-7 with a down up pick, and we're going to keep that alternate picking, which is relatively easy to do with this exercise because you've just got 2 notes per string, at least in this first exercise 1A. Okay, so now notice here a little subtle thing that I start with my index finger on the 5th fret. Okay, a lot of guitar players or a lot of people learning these patterns like to sort of anchor their index on the 4th fret and then use middle pinky. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I find is more useful and more of a real world fingering is to plant the index finger on the 5th fret, go index ring, and then do a quick little position shift and go index, pinky, back up to index, ring, okay? The reason for that is that when you're soloing, you want your stronger fingers, your more agile fingers to be kind of going and give you a little more speed, a little more dexterity. If you got that middle pinky, it's really great to develop it. I'm not saying not to do that because that's really good to develop that kind of thing. But most of the time, if I'm going to go a little bit faster, I'm going to use the index ring, okay? So you see that position shift I'm doing right there really quick. Okay, and then back up. And you can see we got a little bit of a sequence here. So we're going to go up 4 strings and then go back to the D string and okay, so it's sort of 2 groups of 8 notes, right? So we're going to go and then back to the D string. Okay, what's up, Rad Flying V? Great to see you. And then coming back down, 10 and set. Now we're going to shift up to that regular minor pentatonic pattern position and come down with the same sequence. So again, down, up, right, with your picking. And then back to the G string, and then back down. Okay? So when you put that together, you throw on a metronome, you work on your speed a little bit or just warm up a little bit. It's going to sound like... Laura, every time I go back down, I switch right back to middle ring. Can't stop myself. Got to try and, you know what? The way to sort of break through that kind of habit is just to go slower. Okay. If you can go really slow and just force your fingers into, you know, sort of doing those fingers that don't come naturally. If you go slow, it gives you an opportunity to really force those fingers into where, into that discomfort. And then after you do it with a bunch of repetition, it should start to feel a little more natural. Okay, start to speed that up a bit. Right? All right, does that make sense? Cool. So I love playing out of both of these. You know, you've got all your usual stuff on that position, but then to kind of just slide down and... Right? So it's cool to play out of that position that's sort of behind where that root note is, okay? All right, and like I said, Laura, there's nothing wrong with keeping the fingers correct if you want to just keep, you know, middle pinky and then go index pinky, totally fine, okay? It's all going to work out great, okay? Exercise 2, which is 1B, exercise 1B, sorry, the second of this two-parter. We're going to add in the blues note, and this turns the minor pentatonic scale into a blues scale, okay? So that first bar is going to have probably a blues scale pattern that you're not really familiar with. And so in this case, it actually helps to have that fingering I'm talking about, because as you can see, we start on that A note, 5, 7, but then we're going to go 5, 7, 8. Okay, so you're going to have your index, ring, and pinky. Now that 8th fret of the A string, that's the flat 5. That's the blues note. That's the note we're adding to the pentatonic minor scale. And then you're going to do that position shift down to the 4th fret of the D. Okay, and this time, because I've added the other note, I'm not coming back to the D string. I'm just going to keep going up. Okay, so. And now we've got 5, 6, and 7 on the B string, 6 being the flat 5 or that blues note again. And then we've got 5, 7 up top. So in that pattern below the B note, we've got blues note, okay? Now, a little bit tricky here because we want to keep the alternate picking going. So what happens is when we've got 3 notes on a string, it's going to turn your picking around because it's a little bit easier to go down, up, and then move to the next string, down, up, move to the next string, down, up. But now you're going down, up on one string, and then down, up, down on the next string, moving to the next string on an upstroke. And that's what you want to do. You want to be able to keep that alternate picking going no matter what strings you're crossing. Okay, so this is really good practice for that. Okay. Next, up at the top there, we're going to go. Now we're going to come up to that position in the 7th position where your index is sort of aligned on the 7th fret, and we're going to come back down. 10, 7, 10, 7. But then the blues note is on the G string, 10th fret. So you've got 10, 9, and 7 on the G string. And then it's 9, 7 on the D. Then 9, 8, 7 on the A. There's the blues note right there, okay? And then 10 and 7 on the low string. Right on, John. Douglas, what's up, guys? Thanks for coming down. All right. Thanks for joining us. Coming down, whatever. So to play this all the way through, it's going to look like this. Makes sense. All right. Let's take some questions here. Doug, this pertains of the blues minor scale and the blues major scale. Rely too much on the blues minor scale. Is the augmented third what we use in the blues major? Same note. Yeah, so that's kind of I've heard that often heard as the bluegrass scale, which is sort of just a major pentatonic scale where you're going to include the minor third, basically. It's not an augmented third. It's a major pentatonic with a flat third included. Okay. So, for example, if I'm doing it in the key of B, okay. If I think about B, now I'm switching to B major pentatonic. Okay. And the sound of that is, okay, some different notes. Okay. But where you're going to add the extra note is after the second note. So you got the root, the major second, then you've got the flat 3, then the 3, okay? Then the 5th, 6th, and then back up to the octave, right? So you totally recognize that sound, right? That's sort of what I consider the major blues scale, kind of, but they sort of call it the bluegrass scale. Okay, that's that sound. All right. So that's what I would do. You just think about a major pentatonic, add the flat 3. Okay. Cool. Great question. As far as scales for intermediate players, as what we were talking about earlier. Okay. What you want to make as to be an intermediate player, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but to be an intermediate player, you've got to know cold the full major scale, the natural minor scale, the full minor scale, and then the pentatonic major and the pentatonic minor. Those 4 scales are bread and butter, okay? And if you know those really, 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 really well, then all the other scales, like the modes and all these kind of exotic scales, they're all just little tweaks of those 4 scales, okay? Like, for example, the blues scale we were just talking about. We just added 1 note to the minor pentatonic, okay? And it became the blues scale, right? So that's pretty easy to grasp if you have a good understanding of the minor pentatonic scale. And so it's sort of the same thing with modes and all that kind of stuff, right? If we understand the major scale, the full major scale, then we can make the jump to a Mixolydian scale, which is a major scale with a flat 7. That's all it is, right? So you can kind of just adjust what you already know to kind of fit into that. All right. So I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of getting into a lot of detail of the scales, but I'll just say for intermediate players, know those 4 scales and then start to branch out and explore the modes a little bit. Make sure you understand the modes, how, where they come from, where you use them, all that kind of stuff. All right. Hope that helps. What's up, Steve? Glad you made it. All right. Excellent here. Steve's asking, so this must be movable. 2.5 steps down would be A. No, not 2.5 steps down. If we're talking about B minor pentatonic, for example, if we want to get to A, then we're just coming down 2 frets. Okay, maybe that's what you meant. 2 frets. Yeah, 2.5 steps down. So that is what you meant. Okay. Yes, 2 semitones down would be A. That's right. So if you wanted to play this exercise in the key of A minor, right, you just shift it down 2 frets. So now I'm playing it there. So the whole idea is that you're learning these patterns and relate those patterns to your anchor points, which are your root notes. Okay. And if you know where the root notes are in the pattern, then it makes it really easy to shift them up and down the neck to transpose them into different keys, if that makes sense. Okay. Cool. Excellent start to it tonight. All right, let's get into some strumming. Just want to show sort of some different chord voicings, maybe on sort of a typical chord progression. And we've got a little bit of a syncopated strum. And this one, if you'll notice, it's all downstrokes on the 8th notes, and we've got down ups for 16th notes. There's a couple spots where we're doing a quick down up, which would equate to a 16th note rhythm. Okay. And you can see that in the staff. I'm talking about exercise 2. You can see that in the staff above with the notes on the staff. If you see notes connected with 2 flags connecting them, that means it's a 16th note. Okay. And if you just see 1 flag, like you see on the rest of them, right, except for the last 2 strums of each bar, you'll see all 8th notes, except there's a quarter note there that's tied over the 3rd beat of the bar. We're letting just that strum ring out. Okay, so let's look at the first bar of this, and it looks like this. Okay, I'm grabbing the 4th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D and G, C sharp minor, C sharp 5, a C sharp power chord is what I'm trying to say. 4th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D and G. That's just root 5th octave root. When I add the B and the high E, turns it into a minor 7 chord. Because you've added the minor 3rd and the minor 7th note, right? To a root and 5th. So that's a cool voicing of it, right? Like another voicing that you might learn like Mel Bay style kind of be that way, where you bar down on the 4th fret, you add the 6th fret of the D, 5th fret of the B. And that totally works too. But this is just a cool sort of alternate voicing that uses some open strings. These are the top 2 strings, okay? Doing 2 downstrokes, and then there's a rest, so I want to cut it off. And then on the end of 2, I've moved to an A chord, and this one is the open A string, 2nd fret of the D, 6th fret of the G string. So that's the open A as the root, and then I've grabbed two notes out of what would be an A bar chord, okay, on the D and G string. But now I'm adding the B note and then the high E open. Those are the open B, open high E string. Okay. So what you get is that the add 9 is sort of a sus sound, but I've already got a major third in there, so it can't be a sus chord. So it's got to be an add chord. You're adding the 9th, which is B. That's a step above the A. So, and of course the open E would be the 5th in the chord. So really cool voicing, right? Especially coming from this voicing, because you're sharing strings on that move. So, you know, sounds nice and pretty together, okay? And notice with this quick little strum at the end, I'm grabbing my pinky on the 9th fret of the high string, adding it to the chord. This is just a higher octave of the major third note, right? The C sharp. So I just thought that sounded cool, right? And it just shows you can kind of add notes in different spots on your chords and give it a little bit of a different sound, right? So, right? So, okay. Down, up, and then you cut it off. It's a rest right after that. We're going to use the same strum on the next two chords in the second bar. So now I've got a B chord, another great floaty sounding chord. The lower notes are just a B bar chord, 7th position, okay? And then I've got an open B and an open high E string there. So another floaty chord, turns out I'm adding an 11 to it, which would be the high E string, okay? Which would normally be like a sus4, but once again, I've got a major third in there, so you need to add that note to it. So it's add 11. So then, and then I'm going to grab this E chord. Okay? This E chord, I'm going to get the pinky on the 7th fret of the A, 6th fret of the D, 4th fret of the G. That's an E major triad right there. I've got the low open string as a lower root, and then I'm curling my fingers to expose the open B string and the open E string. So just another sort of variation of an E chord voicing that maybe you haven't seen before, okay? Once again, we're using those open strings all the way through this, right? So that whole thing together sounds like this. Okay? Really cool. Sounds a lot different than if you did messed it up. One more time. Okay? There's a big difference between the sort of sound and feel of that versus okay? Forgot to go to that chord. All right, so just sort of a different flavor, right? All right, we've got a question. Doug's got a question here. Seems the greats mix the blues majors and minors, plus the use of the hybrid major and minor overlapping. Agree, absolutely, 100%. Okay, particularly when it's a chord progression that's not strictly major or minor. Okay, it happens a lot. You know, I think of Angus with AC/DC, right? Like all those riffs are sort of just power chords, right? And so Angus will just switch between major and minor pentatonics in the same solo back and forth a lot. Yeah, great. And of course the blues guys. Yeah. You know, B.B. King always going back and forth between those two sounds. Absolutely. What do we got? Rusty, new mic. I don't think so. Does it sound a little bit different? Maybe it sounds better. I don't know. Your audio is lower than the guitar, which screams out. All right. Let me adjust that a little bit. This might have got bumped. Is that a little better? Did that do anything? Hopefully. I think I lowered the volume there a little bit. Let's see, maybe that didn't do anything. We'll do it here. Okay. All right, so we've got Kyle. Where can I learn to use triads best? We've got a triad example coming up, so always try to put those in. You know what? Go on Guitar Tricks if you're a member of Guitar Tricks and type in triads and work through those tutorials. Okay, you got to learn those triads, the major and minor triads on every string set, so you get familiar with the shapes. And then what I would do to a thing that I would do once you learn those shapes is to take any song, whether it be on Guitar Tricks or whatever, any song that you know really well, and experiment with playing the chord progressions with only triads on different string sets. And that's a great way to sort of practice that kind of stuff, put it to practice, all right? If that makes sense. Russ, are there certain keys played in most pop classic rock songs? Yeah, I think there's guitar-friendly keys, right? Like anything with the C, D, A, G, E, right? Those are pretty popular keys. We kind of gravitate towards where the dots are. And so if we get into the flat keys and the sharp keys, we kind of get in between where the dots are on the fretboard and we get lost easier, right? So, there's no hard, fast rule in anything. And as a matter of fact, pop and classic songs, a lot of times what would dictate the keys, first of all, is where does the singer's voice sound the best, right? And in a place like Nashville here where I live, right, just outside of Nashville, up on Music Row, they're always adjusting songs just to fit the perfect key for whatever, how good the singer sounds, right? So you might have to play in a weird key if you're a session guitarist in Nashville, right? The other thing that will dictate that is whether you've got other instrumentation, like, for example, horns. A lot of music that features horns, B flat seems to be a key that they use. And strings even, right? If there's a lot of orchestration going on with strings, you might have to adapt to whatever key those instruments sound good at. So, but if it's like a guitar-based song, most of the time you'll see that they're sort of based around those open chords. Not strictly speaking, but, more or less, if that makes sense. All right. Not good audio for the microphone. Really, that's interesting. I apologize for that. I've got a podcasting microphone right here. Maybe I'm just too far away from it. So I apologize, Malcolm. Hopefully you can still understand it. Doug, how do you come up with all this cool stuff every week? Just, it comes from practicing and whatever I'm working on at the time kind of inspires stuff. So hopefully you find it cool. That's the main thing. Scott, I'm glad you made it. Welcome, welcome. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Too much bass now on the guitar. Let's see. I'll roll it down a little bit. All right. Laura's a member. Excellent, excellent. All right, Kyle. Yeah, apologize, but you know what? Go on Guitar Tricks and make an account, and there's a bunch of free lessons. Okay, so at least check it out and see what you think. There are a bunch of free lessons, I believe, if you sign up to Guitar Tricks and not actually sign up to the subscription, but just kind of make a user and go in and check out all the free content. All right, appreciate that, Doug. Thanks so much. $100 a year, I think so. Yeah. If you're sort of tight on money, always keep an eye out for a lot of the deals that they'll do. Sometimes they do sales. All right. Master Tim, can you do a chord progression in the key of G? I think it's coming up. All right. I will do that. By the way, Master Tim, expand the description below the video because I have tabs already that I'm going through. Okay. So check out that tab. There's a link to the tab and you can follow along and we'll go through that. If I have time at the end, we'll talk a little more about chords in the key of G, but I believe we have some coming up. Okay. All right. What's up, Greg from Australia? Thanks so much, Bill, for the kind words. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Exercise 3, palm mutes. Okay, so I'm going to play this example, exercise 3, a little bit. We'll talk about it. It goes something like this. Okay, so once again, adding in some sort of different voicings to make it sound a little more interesting. Okay, we've got an interesting voicing for a B minor 7. Once again, you know, as I was talking about before with the C sharp minor 7, if you bring that down 2 frets, that's sort of the Mel Bay way to play a B minor 7. But I got a different way here. 2nd fret of the A, open D string, 2nd fret of the G, 3rd fret of the B. Okay, and what we're doing is we're adding in a syncopated strum, which means I'm doing an open strum, the downstroke, and then I'm hitting the root note on the A string, 2nd fret, twice, 2 downstrokes with palm muting. Okay, got my karate chop on my strumming hand, just resting near the saddles of the bridge. Okay, and nothing to, you know, not be heavy-handed, just lightly resting on there. We'll just dampen it just a little bit, okay? Okay. So what I've got is a strum, 2 picks with the root note, and then another strum and 2 picks. And then I've got one more strum and 1 pick, and that's going to give me 4 strums, 8th notes that make up a full bar, right? Okay. So there we go. That's B minor 7, a little bit of a different voicing, but kind of a cool sound. And I'm just going to shift some fingers over. You know, you basically got this D power chord up top, and you're adding a root to it, right? In the 2nd bar, I'm adding a G note to it, 3rd fret of the low string, curling my finger around to mute the A string, but I've got that D power chord up top. Okay, this is going to give me a G sus2 sound. Okay, same strums, open, 2 palm mutes, open, 2 palm mutes, open and 1 palm mute. Next, we're going to the full D chord, okay? So the D string is going to be your root, and then 2, 3, 2 on the G, B, and high E string. Now notice on that 2nd open strum, I'm opening up to the open E string on that chord. That's going to be a D sus2. Okay. And then down to an A chord, but I'm holding the D note, 3rd fret of the B string, okay? That's going to give me an A sus4. 2nd strum, I'm going to lift that off and be barring down on the 2nd fret of the B string. And then back to the 3rd fret, okay, on the B string. So pretty cool little riff using some different voicings. But really the thing here is, if you haven't been exposed to palm muting before, this gives you a little bit of an exercise with some chords to work on that and switch between a full strum and then be able to plant that karate chopper down and dampen that root note. So if you're new to that, what I would do is not worry about the chord changes at first. What I would do is just make one of the chord shapes and just work on that rhythm. Okay. All right. Hopefully you're with me on that one. Exercise 4, getting into some arpeggios. Okay, this is a little bit different than chord arpeggiation. Some students get that mixed up a little bit. So chord arpeggiation is taking any chord shape, and just picking one note at a time and letting them all ring out together. That kind of thing. That's arpeggiation. What an arpeggio is playing the individual notes that make up a chord. So for example, in exercise 4A, those of you just joining, expand the description. There's a link to a PDF with the tabs that we're going through tonight. Exercise 4A starts with a G dominant seventh or a G7 arpeggio. Now, a G7 chord, if we think about it, right? It's got a root. Let's look at this bar chord version of it. Root, fifth, minor seventh, major third, fifth, root. Okay? So a dominant seventh chord is spelt with root, major third, fifth, minor seventh. Those four notes make up a dominant seventh chord. Okay? So in the case of G, I'm going to start on the G note, third fret of the low string. I'm going to go to the B, second fret of the A. That's going to be my major third, right? Then the fifth fret of the A string is the fifth of the chord. And then the third fret of the D string is the F note, which is the minor seventh of the chord. So now I've just played the four notes that make up a G dominant seventh chord as an arpeggio. Okay? Just by doing that, one note at a time, kind of running them together like that, that's your arpeggio. Now what we can do, that we can go all the way up the strings and back down, doing it in each octave, right? So that's what this exercise does. Okay, that's what we're going for. So we've got the lower octave. Okay, and notice that I'm going down to the flat seven from the root here to kind of end off. That's sort of in the last bar, but know that that note is behind where I started. Okay. Now, when I get up to the fifth fret of the D string, I'm into the next octave. Now I'm on the root again. And so I'm going to go root, third, fifth, flat seven. And you have to adjust an extra fret up on the B string, right? Because it's tuned flat. So that takes me to the sixth fret of the B. And then I'm going to get the root on the eighth fret of the B, and then get 7 and 10 on the high string. And I'm just going to stop there, right? Even though there's the next one's up at the 13th fret, right? But for the purpose of this exercise, we're just kind of going up the strings and back down. Okay, everybody with me? All right, so you see what I've done in this exercise is also include the G minor 7 and the G major 7 arpeggios, because those chords have a different chord formula, okay? And the difference in the G minor 7 chord is the minor third, okay? So in order to spell a minor seventh chord, you're going to have a root, a minor third, fifth, and a minor seventh. So it's basically a G dominant seventh with the flat third, right? So it just means that out of the pattern that we just played, now when we play it for G minor 7, what are the notes is going to shift? So it's going to look like this. Okay. So really great one. Remember your alternate picking. If you've got a metronome, for sure, flip it on, go slow. Okay. And remember, with a lot of these kind of arpeggios going up and down the neck, a lot of them require sort of a quick little position shift, right? If I'm going to go. See how quickly I have to kind of shift to my pinky to get, sort of coming down that, right? And then in exercise 4C, we've got the G major 7. The G major 7 is spelled root major 3rd, 5th, major 7th, okay? So now we're going to go to the dominant 7th shape and then just bump up the 7th note from a flat 7 to a major 7. Just comes up one semitone, right? And so that looks like this. Okay. No worries, Rusty. All you got to do, just work on the tabs. At the very least, this is a cool finger exercise, right? And also a little bit of an ear training exercise because there's a distinct difference in sound from each of those exercises, okay? You got the dominant 7th sound, major 7th, minor 7th sounds, okay? And where this is helpful is just knowing where the chord notes are, okay? Down the road, when you get some skills and you want to play solos, all the greats know where to land on chord notes. They know the chords that are going underneath, and they know how to land their licks on notes that are in the chord. That's how it ends up sounding so good, okay? They're highlighting the chord underneath. So one of the steps in learning where all those notes are is to learn these arpeggios, right? Okay. Cool. All right. Doug's talking about arpeggios, triads, and double stops. Great for accompaniment with other guitarists and feel. Absolutely. 100%. All right, everybody. Moving on to a blues feel. A little bit of a different sort of blues exercise tonight. Just some strumming and some chords, maybe some different blues rhythm approaches from what you've seen before. I'm going to come up here to... Now, the first thing is it's a blues shuffle, right? So instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, where everything's equal, the down-up strums are equal, we're going to delay that upstroke a little bit and give it a bounce. Give it a shuffle. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay? Now, what I'm doing is grabbing an open E7. Okay? Open low string, second fret of the A, open D string, first fret of the G, and then the open top 2 strings. And you can see what we've got on the strum here is... So every first strum, the downstrokes are all on that open E7, but the upstroke I'm going to add at first onto the chord, the second fret of the B string. Okay? No, I'm sorry, I explained that wrong. So the first down and up are on the open E chord. And then on the next downstroke, that's when I'm going to add the second fret of the B string, okay? And then on the upstroke, I'm going to pull it off again. And then on the next downstroke, I'm adding the third fret onto it, okay? And then on the upstroke, off, back to the second on the next downstroke. And then on the next upstroke, I'm going to let that ring out over the next bar. So. Okay, one more time. That's the riff that we're going for. So it's a 2-bar rhythm. And the only difference is that on that last upstroke of the first bar, you're sort of not hitting the next downstroke. Okay, you're letting that ring out and then coming in on the next upstroke. So what I'm doing to the chord is actually adding, okay, so that B note is the 5th of the E chord. Then I'm going to the sixth. I'm adding a sixth onto the chord, and then a flat seven. And so that would sort of be the same thing as doing which you'll recognize as a really common blues rhythm guitar approach. All I'm doing is taking a full chord and sort of adding those notes in an upper register onto a fuller chord. Right? So cool little, maybe something you haven't seen before. Okay, so then we're going to go to the 4 chord in a blues, right? We'll go to the 4 chord in the key of E, which would be A, in this case, A7. So I got the open A, second fret of the D, open G, second fret of the B, and the open high E string. Now I'm going to be adding on the top string. Okay? So when you add it to the chord, okay, so putting it all together, it would go something like this. And then just for completeness, I show you what the 5 chord looks like, which is the B7. And in this case, I'm just going to do a B7 bar chord up in the 7th position. It's really just this E-shaped moved up and barred down on the 7th fret, right? And then you could use your pinky to get the 9th and 10th fret of the B string and add it on. Right? In this case, I would go 1 bar on the B and 1 bar on the A. So I'll just move it down 2 frets. It would look like this. Something like that. Okay? Right on. Love it. All right, everybody. Got a couple more coming here. So now we've got some triad stuff. And actually, this is not, this is exercise 6. It's not strictly triads, but it starts off with some triad shapes. And what I did was come up with a 1-4-5 minor progression using triad shapes going up the neck. And so let me play through this exercise first, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Sounds like this. Okay. Pretty cool sounding, choppy little staccato thing. And what gives away that it's staccato is that if you look at the notes on the staff in this example, being example 6, every strum, which is a quarter note, you're right on the beat, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. But you're strumming quarter notes, but you're cutting off the note quickly, or cutting off the chords quickly after you've strummed it. That's what gives it a staccato. Okay, so that's what that little dot means on the top of the notes. It means to play it staccato. It means to cut it off as soon as you strum it. Okay, so. Okay, so the first chord that we're using is D minor, and you'll recognize it in open position. And usually you would probably add the root to it. In this case, I didn't because I wanted to show off the triad shapes. Okay, so this is a minor triad shape. This is called a second inversion minor triad shape on the top 3 strings. Okay, because the 5th is the lowest note. The root's in the middle and the minor third's up top. Okay, so this shape is one of your 3 minor triad shapes for the top 3 strings. Okay. And so I'm strumming it twice with a staccato feel, so I'm cutting it off. You know, whether you use your karate chopper or just lift your fingers off the frets, but not the strings, right? Combination of both works really well. Now I'm moving up the neck. So now I've got the 7th fret of the G, 6th fret of the B, 5th fret of the high string, okay? Now, This is, thanks, John, love it. 7th fret of the G string, 6th fret of the B, 5th fret of the high string. Yeah, it definitely has that Roxanne sound, right? Doug kind of has that a little bit. Definitely the staccato thing for sure. Now, because this one goes root, minor, 3rd, 5th, this is just like a minor triad shape. It's not an inversion, okay? Because we've got 7, 6, 5 is the tab off, top strings. Hope not. Laura, let me know where the tab's off. It could very well be. I'm making mistakes everywhere. 5, 8, 6. No, it's 5. Where's 5, 8, 6? Did I make a mistake somewhere? Could be. Which example is that, Laura? Yeah, it could be a bit of a reggae feel, right, Doug? At any rate, let me know, Laura. We'll see if there's that mistake there. Oh yes, after 3, 2, 2. No, I'm still on the first line. Okay, Laura, I haven't gotten to the A7 yet. Okay, I'm still on the D minor, so I'm on bar 26. You're gonna have to move up. You kind of went ahead a little bit. Okay. So yeah, that's correct, but we're talking about a different chord down there. No problem. All right. So root, 3rd, 5th. So we got that shape, right? And then when we move up and it's a 1-finger chord, you've got 10, 10, 10 on the top 3 strings. That's going to be your minor, 3rd, 5th, and the root's on top. That's a first inversion minor triad on the top 3 strings, okay? And then I go up the octave and I do the same shape that I started with, just an octave up, okay? So okay. Now I'm going to switch chords. I'm going to go to the 4 chord, which is G minor. I'm going to use the exact same shapes, but they're just in different spots because we're playing a different chord. So for G minor, I'm going to go down to the 3rd fret with the 1-finger chord, triad shape, right? Start with that. That gives you the police sound because I think that's a G minor that song's in, right? I think it is. All right. Then the next one is going to be that first shape we used with D, but it's up the neck here, 7th fret of the G string, 8th of the B, 6th of the high string, and then up 12, 11, 10 of the top 3 strings. That's another G minor triad, and then getting up to the 15th fret for the 1-finger version up top, right? So okay. Now, Laura, we're on to the A7 chord. Okay, this is the 5 chord. It's a very common move, but the problem with this, when you're talking about triads, is that as soon as you introduce a 7th chord, that chord has 4 notes in it instead of 3. Okay, so when you've got triads, they're usually major or minor, and they could also be augmented and diminished chords, but usually minor and major. Okay, because you've got 1, 3, 5, or 1 flat 3, 5. Okay, 3 notes that make up the chord. So any of these triad shapes, you're playing the full chord. You're just mixing up the order of the notes. Okay. In this case, when it comes to a 7th chord, I'm still using only 3 note voicings. So I'm not technically playing the full chord, but I'm inferring it by what I'm playing. I'm sort of taking what would be a fuller shape of it and just picking 3 of the notes out. Okay, so I'm just giving you sort of a cross section of some but not all of the shapes you could use for a dominant 7th chord on the top 3 strings. Okay, now we're in A. So the first one, bar down at the 2nd fret of the top 3 strings and add the 3rd fret of the high string. Okay, it's going to give you an A7 sound. Then I'm going up to 6, 8, and 5. Okay, so it's a little bit of a tougher grab. If you think about it, if you do the A7 bar chord with the pinky on the 8th fret of the B, I'm just playing the top 3 notes of that. Okay. Then I'm playing what would be the D7 shape, but I'm moving it up to the 8th and 9th fret. That gives us an A7 right there. And again, these are sort of not the full chord. I'm just pulling 3 of the 4 notes out of the chord. Okay. And then there's one last one up here, or another one. It's not the last one. There are other variations you can do, but I grabbed the one where you're barring down on the 12th fret and you add the 14th fret of the B string. Okay. So you got, and then ending on the D minor up top. Okay. By the way, that's a very common chord progression. You know, in a minor key, the 1, 4, and 5 chords are minor, but a lot of times in the 5 chord, the dominant 7th gets substituted, and that gives you more of that classical sound, and that's used all the time. So that this is sort of an example of that. Okay. Great. All right. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, thank you. All right. Couple last things I'm going to cram in at the end of the session. All right. Number 7, it's really just a walking bass line, but this is a really fun one to work on your groove a bit because this comes from a funky song. It's like a Stevie Wonder song called I Wish. And let me just play the bass line a little bit and kind of show you what you can do with this. But let's see. Okay. That's sort of the first bar of it. Once again, we're playing staccato style. You can see the little dots under the notes. That means to kind of cut off the note. Okay. So I'm playing the note and then just lifting my finger off the fret, but not the string, right? So we got the 6th fret of the A going to 2, 4, 6, 4 on the low string. And then a chromatic thing, 3, 4, 5, landing back to 6 on the A string. Then in the second bar, after you hit the 6th fret of the A string, you're going to play an octave higher of what would have been that lower figure. Now you're playing it on the D string, 4, 6, 8, 6. And then back to the chromatic thing, and you can kind of loop that. So it would sound like this. Okay. It's a fun one to work on your groove. It's a little bit of a challenge to get the fingers going. Kind of you're all over the neck a little bit, but start slow with it. Okay. Work with a metronome if you got one. It's really fun once you get it up and going. And like you could kind of hear that I added a little bit of a quick upstroke on some of it to give it a little more vibe, right? You can add a little bit of palm muting onto it to kind of give it a little bit of groove, okay? And then the last exercise, all right? Sort of a speed picking exercise for you rockers out there. A little bit of a string stretcher too, okay? So you'll see these are groups of 6. And what I'm doing is I'm doing E minor pentatonic, and starting up on my index finger is on the 12th fret, okay? And I'm starting on 17, going to 12, 15, 17, 15, 12. So I'm using my index, ring, pinky on this one. Okay, that's the first 6 notes. If you repeated it, you can kind of get into a flow with it. But then what I did is I moved it down, okay? And these are notes out of E minor pentatonic, okay? Now I'm going to move down 2 frets, and I'm going to get 15. I'm going to do the same sequence, 15 going to 10, and then 12, 15, 12, 10. So it's going to go like this. Okay? So put those first two together. You have to make a quick shift. Whoop. Okay. You want to keep your alternate picking going on this. Okay. Then I'm going to take the same shape down to the B string and play that exact same thing, but only on the B string. And then I'm going to move back up and play the original shape, but on the B string. So you can kind of go in a circle, right? So anyway, that's it. That's sort of the exercise there. So once again, go slow. It's kind of thing where you want it. You can take just 6 of those notes and just work it. Okay. It's going to help your dexterity. You don't have to shred it, right? It's going to help your dexterity when stretching. Okay. It's going to help your picking speed, dexterity. It's going to help your stretches, all that stuff. You don't have to turn it into a shred lick, right? You can kind of play it, clean, right? Okay. That's what we're going for. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found some inspiring stuff tonight. Thanks, Jody One. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Super appreciate all the feedback, all of the questions, all of the kind words for sure. All right. Thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. So there you go. Another one in the books. Next week by request. Hopefully whoever requested it, and I apologize, I can't remember who requested this. Next week we're going to be on the acoustic, but I'm going to do alternate tunings. Okay? So I'm going to show some examples of different tunings that you can do on the acoustic and sort of some different moves and different musical examples and whatnot. So we're switching it up a little bit, okay? We're going to do that next Friday, same time. All right, I appreciate everybody dropping by tonight, all the participation, the kind words. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Stay cool. It's hot out there in certain parts of the country. I'm going to try and stay cool. All right. Hey, there he is, Trail of Picks, Matt Ferris. All right. Matt, what's going on, man? Hope you're well. Excellent. Yes, Peter, we're doing alternate tunings next week on the acoustic, okay? Cool, man. Well, yeah, everybody. Great to hear it, Matt. Thanks for jumping on. All right. Cool, man. Awesome. Yeah. Have a great weekend. Have a great next week. 1 degree Celsius for Rad Flying V. Oh man, stay warm then. No, Peter, no apologies. I'm glad you requested it. We're doing it next week. Okay. It's a good change of pace, a good thing to go over. Okay. So we'll do it. Everybody take care. Okay. We'll see you in a week. Have a great weekend. Thanks. See you later. Let's see.